Hello everyone. In this video, let us learn about COT curves and COT curve analysis. COT curve analysis was first developed and utilized in the mid 1960s by Roy Britton, Eric Davidson, and his colleagues. It is based upon the principles of DNA renaturation kinetics. So in further videos, we'll be seeing what is DNA renaturation, what is DNA denaturation, so on, and how do we analyze COT curves and all we'll be seeing in the further slides. So DNA is a double-stranded helix, as we all know. So DNA has two strands. You can see in this image, one of this is representing one strand and this is representing another strand. So DNA is a double stranded and usually it will be in the form of a helix structure. So the two strands of the DNA will be connected to each other by hydrogen bonding. So you can see if this is one strand of DNA and this is another strand of DNA, then this is connected by hydrogen bonding. The nucleotides of one strand will be connected to another strand by a hydrogen bond formation. So we all know that when A combines with T, it forms two hydrogen bonds, and when G is combined with C, it forms three hydrogen bonds. So this is how the DNA double strand is formed, where the sugars, the backbone of the DNA is made up of phosphate group and the two strands of the DNA is connected to each other by hydrogen bonding. So this hydrogen bonding plays a very important role in DNA denaturation and renaturation. So moving on to DNA denaturation and renaturation. So as we all know, the native form of DNA, usually DNA exists as a double-stranded helix. So you can see there is a red strand and a blue strand that you can see. So red strand is representing one strand and a blue strand is representing another strand. So DNA is a double helix. It has two strands in it. So you take, for example, we are going to take DNA in a buffered solution. You are going to take DNA in a test tube or in an Eppendorf tube, which is and you have dissolved it in a buffer solution. So now DNA is present in a buffered solution. Now you take this buffered solution, the ampule or the Eppendorf containing DNA in a buffer solution that you will take, and you're going to place it in a hot water bath. So what you're actually doing here, you're giving heat to the DNA. So when you give heat to DNA, what happens is the hydrogen bonds between the two strands of the DNA is going to break. So when the hydrogen bonds between the two strands of the DNA breaks, the double-stranded DNA gets converted to single-stranded. So this process we call it as denaturation, where when you apply heat to the double-stranded DNA, the double-stranded DNA gets converted to two single-stranded DNA. So this process is called as denaturation of the DNA. So once this single-stranded DNA is formed, now if it has to reanneal, then what we have to do is we have to cool the DNA sample. So now what you're doing to the single-stranded DNA, to the denatured DNA, you're going to reduce the heat. Now you're going to reduce the heat. When I say you're going to reduce the heat, that means you're going to cool the DNA sample. When you're cooling the DNA sample, you're giving it some time. You're applying some time for it to cool. So when you cool the DNA along with time, what happens is the DNA will come back to its original position, that the hydrogen bond will reform and these two separated single strands will again form hydrogen bonding to form a double-stranded DNA. And this process we call it as renaturation, where the single-stranded DNA, when it is cooled for some time, will come back to its double-stranded position. That is called as renaturation of the DNA. This process is called as renaturation of the DNA. Now this COT curve analysis depends upon the renaturation of the DNA sample. So let us see how this renaturation plays a very important role, why we have to analyze COT curves. Now, renaturation of the DNA depends upon four factors. What are these factors? The first factor is the concentration of the DNA. What is concentration of the DNA? The amount of DNA that is present in the solution is called as the concentration of the DNA. How many nucleotide bases are present? How much of DNA is present? That is called as concentration of DNA. Next factor is time. What is this time? Time is that you're giving some time when you're cooling the single stranded DNA, the denatured DNA. When you're cooling this denatured DNA, you're giving them some time to renature. So that time means here it is the renaturation time, the time taken for the DNA to get renatured. That is another factor. How much time does the denatured DNA takes? How much time does the denatured DNA takes to renature? That is another factor. How much time do we have to give? That is another factor. So the first factor is concentration of DNA. The second factor is the time. We have to give some time for the renaturation to take place. Then another factor is buffer factor. So we all know that always a DNA has to be kept in the buffered solution to maintain its integrity, because DNA has the charge. It has phosphate backbone. DNA has the phosphate backbone. So the phosphates are negatively charged. So you have to always place DNA in a buffered solution. You have to give it a buffer solution, that is cation concentration, because DNA is negatively charged. The cation concentration of the buffer plays a very important role. If you do not place the DNA in a buffered solution, there are chances that the DNA might lose its integrity. So therefore we have to keep it in a buffered solution. So therefore the buffer factor also plays a very important role here. So these are the three important factors that is necessary for on these three factors renaturation of the DNA takes place or depends on these three factors. Now there is another last factor, that is viscosity of the DNA. Now what is this viscosity? This viscosity of the DNA comes into picture only when the DNA solution is impure. So say for example we have a DNA solution. If the DNA solution is contaminated with proteins or RNA, then only then we consider this viscosity factor. If it is contaminated with protein and RNA, the viscosity of the solution increases. So usually viscosity plays an important role during renaturation only if the DNA solution is impure. Otherwise, we do not take viscosity into consideration. So now let us see what this COT stands for. Here CO in COT represent the concentration of the DNA. CO will represent the concentration of the DNA. So CO stands for concentration of the DNA and T stands for the renaturation time. T stands for time here. So these are the various factors on which renaturation of the DNA depends upon. Then why do we have to do these? So why do we have to see what is a renaturation of DNA? Why do we have to analyze COT curve? So there is a significance to analyze the COT curve. So this slide will explain us what is the significance, why do we have to analyze the COT curve. So the COT curve analysis, when we perform, we will know the organization of the genome, how the genome is organized. In our previous video, we saw that genome is organized as overlapping genes. It is organized as interrupted gene, uninterrupted genes. Then it has other genes also, like pseudo genes, alternative genes. How are these genes organized? So this we can find out when we do COT curve analysis. Along with this, a very important thing that we will know is how much of repetitive sequence is present in the DNA. How much of moderately repetitive sequence is present in the DNA, highly repetitive sequence is present in the DNA. How many unique DNA sequences are present? This we will know. These properties of the DNA we will know. We will also know what is the melting temperature of the DNA. Now, what is this melting temperature? Melting temperature is the temperature that you're giving for denaturation. So melting temperature is the temperature at which half of the DNA in a solution is single stranded. I hope you're understanding. So during denaturation, you're going to provide heat. So melting temperature is the temperature at which half of the DNA in the solution is single stranded. So at a particular point, the double stranded DNA in a solution is going to appear, half of it is going to appear as single stranded DNA. So that particular temperature, we call it as melting temperature of the DNA. That is one of the important property of the DNA which we have to know. So all these properties of the DNA we will know when we are doing COT curve analysis. So this is the significance why we have to do COT curve analysis. This is the reason that we have to do COT curve analysis. So let us see how to perform COT curve analysis. So first thing to do here is we have to isolate the DNA. So the first step in the COT curve analysis is isolation of DNA. So you can analyze, we can get to know the properties of any DNA. It could be a plant material, or it could be a microbial cell, or it could be animal tissue. From any of this we can isolate the DNA. Whichever tissue we are interested in and we want to look for based on our research interest, we will isolate the DNA. So we are a microbiologist, so let's see how to so we will be thinking of microbial cells. So what we do is, like in our lab, you would have already performed DNA isolations in your lab. So what you will do is, you will take the microbial cell, you will subject it to different solutions. Like the first step you do is you use STS solution and all to break open the cell. So you will lyse the cell, you will remove the protein, you will precipitate the DNA, you will rehydrate the DNA, then you are going to wash the DNA and you collect the DNA sample. So you can use any of the methods for DNA isolation. There are various methods for DNA isolation. In your exam for COT curve analysis, you do not have to write the procedure for DNA isolation. The only thing that you have to write is, you're going to isolate the DNA. So the first step is isolation of the DNA. After you isolate the DNA, what you have to do is, you have to cut the DNA into 450 base pair length. Now how do you cut the DNA here? Using ultrasonicator. You can use a machine known as ultrasonicator to cut the DNA into 450 base pair length, or you can use a high speed blending technique. So using these two techniques, you're going to cut the DNA into 450 base pair length DNA. After you cut the DNA into 450 base pair length, you have to visualize it. How do we visualize the DNA? By running it on agarose gel electrophoresis. So you run it on agarose gel electrophoresis and you see the length of the DNA, whether it is 450 base pair length or not. That we have to confirm. So therefore we will run it on the agarose gel electrophoresis and we will visualize it to make sure that it is 450 base pair length DNA. So after visualizing, you have to extract the DNA from the gel. You're going to take the DNA sample from the gel and you're going to dissolve it in the buffer solution. What is the buffer that you are using here? Sodium phosphate buffer. Here you will use a buffer known as sodium phosphate buffer. So you're collecting the DNA in the sodium phosphate buffered solution. You can use any of these molarity solution. The preferred is 0.03 molar solution. So you're going to collect the DNA in 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer. You're going to collect the DNA in 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer. After you collect it, what you do is, you are going to distribute the DNA that you have collected into ampules. You are going to collect it in the ampules. You are going to distribute it into the ampules. So you will distribute in such a way that each ampule contains 100 micrograms of DNA. So in each ampule you have 100 micrograms of DNA. Like this you have distributed. This step is not a very important step. You can just collect the DNA and directly go for the next step. So what is the next step after you collect the DNA? Now what you have to do is, you have to take the ampule in which DNA is there. So that ampule, you're going to subject it to heat. So when you subject it to heat, what happens? Denaturation of the DNA is going to take place. So what is denaturation? The double-stranded DNA will get converted to the single-stranded DNA. So that is the denaturation. So after you denaturate the DNA, you are cooling the DNA and you're giving it some time to renature. So what are you doing? You're going to denature first. Later you're allowing it to renature by cooling it and by giving it some time. You can see here the ampule is kept in a beaker containing water. So when you keep it in the cold water, what happens? You're cooling it. You're cooling the denatured DNA so that it renatures. So when it is renaturing, you're giving it some time. So now we will see how much time does the DNA is taking to renature. So with this, we are going to calculate the COT value. So how do we calculate the COT value? COT value, there is a formula to calculate the COT value. COT value depends upon the concentration, time and buffer factor, as I told you. So the COT value is equal to concentration of the DNA into time into buffer factor. So when you do this, so the buffer factor here, it could be 0.03 molar. You have used 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer. So that is your buffer factor. Your time taken for the renaturation. So the renaturation time we will be checking, and initial concentration also we will know. As I told you, in the ampule we had 100 micrograms of DNA. So 100 micrograms of DNA, the length of each DNA was 450 base pair length. So we had 100 micrograms of DNA. So with this we will calculate the concentration of the DNA. So we will calculate the concentration of the DNA. So concentration is 100 microgram. 100 microgram into renaturation time into buffer factor. When we do, we will get the COT value. So for now what we have got is COT value. So we have still not found what is the COT curve. What we have found is only the COT value. So with this we will finish calculating COT value. Then we have to plot a graph. To plot a graph, there is another step that you have to carry out. So remember, here we will denature the DNA, then we will renature it by cooling it and by giving it some time, and we have calculated the COT value. After calculating COT value, what we have to do is, see, you can see this image here, a chromatography technique is being done. So what is this chromatography? How we are going to do this chromatography? What is the use? Let's see. So as I told you, see, you have collected the DNA in 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer. Now the chromatography technique that we are using here is called as hydroxyapatite column chromatography. Now this is just a simple column. You can see it has a simple column, and the column is filled with hydroxyapatite. The solid phase that we are going to use here is hydroxyapatite. We know in chromatography there is a solid phase, there is a liquid phase. So solid phase is hydroxyapatite. Hydroxyapatite is nothing but the calcium and phosphate ion containing substrate. So it has calcium and phosphates. So that we call it as hydroxyapatite. So we are using column chromatography. So first you are going to fill the column with hydroxyapatite. Then you are going to suspend or dispense DNA. Now DNA is in 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer. This solution you are going to suspend it into this hydroxyapatite column. So at 0.03 molar buffer, the DNA actually binds to the hydroxyapatite. Now when you pour the DNA in with the 0.03 molar sodium phosphate buffer, the DNA is attached to hydroxyapatite, as you can see here. Then what are you collecting here is just the phosphate buffer, sodium phosphate buffer. Your DNA is actually present in the hydroxyapatite solution, hydroxyapatite column. Now next step is you have to elute the DNA. So what you will do is you will dispense or you will suspend 0.12 molar sodium phosphate buffer into that column. So when you add 0.12 molar sodium phosphate buffer, what it does is it will remove the bonds of this single stranded DNA from hydroxyapatite, and single stranded DNA is eluted. So all the DNA in the first step was bound to hydroxyapatite. Now in this step what happens? The single stranded DNA gets removed because the pH has changed now. So single stranded DNA gets removed from the hydroxyapatite solution and it is collected. Then what we do is we use 0.50 molar SPB, sodium phosphate buffer. So when you pour this 0.50 molar sodium phosphate buffer, all the double stranded DNA is also eluted. We are going to collect that in a different ampule or a test tube. Now you can see in this image what we do after collecting it, after centrifugation, we are going to analyze it under spectrophotometer. But in this image you can see that as soon as they are collecting, they are actually analyzing it in the spectrophotometer. We can do it this way. Otherwise, we can also collect the DNA sample and we can and later after collecting, we can check the absorbance using spectrophotometer. So the absorbance, the OD at which we are going to check the absorbance is 260 nanometer here. So when you check this, what we get is we will get the concentration of single stranded DNA. We will get the concentration of single stranded DNA and we will know the volume of single stranded DNA here. Sorry, not the concentration. We will know the volume of the single stranded DNA that we have got, and we will know the volume of the double stranded DNA that we have got and how much DNA is present. This also we will know, the concentration and the volume we will know. Now using this absorbance and the volume, we are going to calculate the percentage of single stranded DNA. Using the absorbance and the volume of single stranded DNA and double stranded DNA, we are going to calculate the percentage of single stranded DNA. So this is the formula to calculate the percentage of single stranded DNA. The percentage of single stranded DNA is equal to VSS into ASS into 100 divided by VSS into ASS plus VDS into ADS. Now what is this VSS, ADS or VDS, we will see. Where VSS stands for volume of single stranded DNA. ASS stands for absorbance of single stranded DNA. VDS stands for volume of double stranded DNA. ADS stands for absorbance of double stranded DNA. Here always the absorbance is 260 nanometer, whether it is single stranded or double stranded. Why we have put 100 in our formula? It is because we are calculating the percentage of the DNA. So volume of single stranded DNA into absorbance of single stranded DNA into 100 divided by volume of single stranded DNA into absorbance of single stranded DNA plus volume of double stranded DNA into absorbance of double stranded DNA will give us the percentage of single stranded DNA. So when you put the values after you do the spectrophotometer analysis, when you calculate the percentage, you get the percentage of single stranded DNA. So now you have two values with you. What is the first value that you have calculated? It is the COT value. You remember in this diagram, after denaturation, renaturation, we have calculated the COT value. Now after the spectrophotometer analysis, we have calculated the percentage of single stranded DNA. Now these two values we have to put it in a graph. You have to plot it on a graph. So when we plot it on a graph, we are going to take a graph. On the graph, we are going to, on the x-axis, we are going to plot log COT value. It's not COT directly. We are going to plot the log COT value. And on the y-axis, x-axis log COT value. And on the y-axis, we are going to calculate the percentage of single stranded DNA. So we have plotted on y-axis percentage of single stranded DNA. So on y-axis, it is percentage of single stranded DNA. On x-axis, it is log COT value. So when you plot the values, you will get a curve like this. So what this is representing is, you can see the percentage of single stranded DNA here is very less. So what happens is, if you see here, the percentage of single stranded DNA is more. Here it is less. So that means So we will see based on the highly repetitive sequence. So this is representing a highly repetitive sequence region. This is representing moderately repetitive region, and this is representing the unique DNA sequence. So this is highly repetitive, moderately repetitive, and this region is unique DNA sequences. Unique DNA sequences means the genes that are present as a single copy. That is called as unique DNA. I have taught what is highly repetitive, moderately repetitive in my previous video. So now we will take an example. Say for example G. G is guanine. Guanine, we have 20 molecules of guanine. Then adenine, we have 10 molecules. And thymine, we have 2 molecules. So now if the guanine molecules are high, so what happens? All the guanine will form, we know that DNA has pyrimidine is equal to purine. So if there are 20 guanine molecules, then cytosine also will be 20. So guanine and cytosine is rich now. So these two will start forming hydrogen bonds faster. So they will renature faster. Correct? So highly repetitive sequences will have more number of repetitive nucleotides. So they will renature faster. So the COT value for them is always less. I hope you are understanding this. So the percentage of single stranded DNA at highly repetitive sequence is less, which means they have already formed a double stranded DNA. That means highly repetitive sequences will renature faster. So at this region, we get highly repetitive sequences. So we know where highly repetitive, how much of highly repetitive sequence is present. Then the next curve will represent moderately repetitive sequence, which means here we can see the repetitive sequences are slightly less compared to highly repetitive sequences. So percentage here compared to highly repetitive, percentage of single stranded DNA is more in moderately repetitive sequences. So we know how much of moderately repetitive sequence will be present. At last we get unique DNA sequences. Because their copy number is very less, they might remain as single stranded DNA, or they might take a lot of time to form a double stranded DNA. So that is what this represents. So the COT value for unique DNA will be more, and the COT value for highly repetitive DNA will be less. So by plotting this graph, we will know how much of highly repetitive sequence is there, moderately repetitive sequence is there, and unique DNA sequences are present in a genome. This is how we can find out by plotting a COT curve. So this is the main significance of doing COT curve analysis. So we will know about the properties of the DNA. We will know about highly repetitive DNA sequence, moderately repetitive DNA sequence, unique DNA sequences, and we will also know what is the melting temperature of the DNA. To know all these various property, it is very important for us to analyze the COT curve. And that is all about this COT curve analysis. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. About this topic, to get in textbooks, it is slightly difficult. So you can refer this video, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me personally. I will clarify your doubts. So main I've used internet for or Google and some papers to make this video. So if you have any doubts, you can directly ask me. Thank you, class.